Welcome to Trends with Benefits, a podcast by VanEck with a forward-looking perspective. We explore new ways of thinking about the markets, investing, work, and life. Here's your host, Ed Lopez.
Welcome to another episode of Trends with Benefits. I am that Ed Lopez, and I am joined today by Dani Fava, Director of Innovation at TD Ameritrade Institutional. Dani, thank you for joining me today.
Ed, thank you so much for having me.
How have you been holding up over the last couple months and this whole period of COVID and work from home? It's really kind of put technology in a spotlight for one, but just from a personal standpoint, how have you been coping?
Yeah, thank you for asking. It's been an emotional roller coaster, really. It took a lot of getting used to at first, had some family health and family employment issues there for a little while. But we're all safe now, and just sort of praying for better days for the whole country. And, so personally, we're all good. Thank you.
That's good. That's good to hear. It's interesting that technology has been thrust upon the marketplace and upon ourselves. Really, we were really relying on technology these days. And I think that's a pretty good intersection with what you may be doing at TD. Can you talk a little bit about your role and what the goal and your mission typically is on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, at TD Ameritrade Institutional, we serve independent financial advisors. I am the Director of Innovation, which really means that I'm out there looking for new ideas, emerging technologies, and I'm using those new ideas and emerging technologies to build new products, new mechanisms, mediums for getting information out, and new business lines, really. So it's been really interesting to see how this time has played out with the use of technology by financial advisors. And I've actually been calling it the involuntary technology revolution. So I think it's really been like a tipping point, but it's been forced upon financial advisors, whether it's in terms of, listening to podcasts, getting their clients on video conferences, having to set up remote access, which even, some advisors have not yet done because of security reasons. They just haven't, made the time to figure it out. And this was now forced upon them. So it's interesting because once the mind expands, right, it can never go back. So they've kind of now experienced these new ways of doing things that may not be new to some of us, but are new to some financial advisors. And I think it's been great because now they're ready. They've experienced new technologies, and hopefully they'll continue to adopt new technologies in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're finding a new way of working that I hope part of it lasts after this pandemic passes. Perhaps we could talk a little bit about your background and how you got to TD Ameritrade. Kind of looking at your resume on LinkedIn, seems like you have a lot of product background. So I think you and I are generally pretty much product managers for all intents and purposes. Can you talk about your career and how you found your way to technology and within financial services?
Yeah, it was an interesting start. It sort of happened to me rather than me picking that path. I was my first job out of college was as a trader or a trade support person on the floor of a large investment manager in New York City. And I remember my job being very monotonous, and I would come in every morning and I'd have to run a set of reports and get everything ready for the portfolio managers. And that seemed just redundant. And so I really wanted a way to fix it. And at the time I was using a software that was mainly command-based, blue screen. And I figured out I use the word hack it. I figured out how to hack the system so that I could kind of get into the code and run my own jobs and create those reports automatically and kind of schedule them to get them done before I came in to remove that redundancy or monotony from my job. And I remember getting a phone call one day from the software company that I had hacked. And I thought, my immediate thought was, oh, I'm in trouble. They got me. What ended up happening was that I created a great relationship with them and they offered me a job. And so that's how I got into financial technology. And I'm not advocating for hacking anything, but that's my story. And since then, I've kind of just fallen in love with the independent advisor space. I love everything about these small business owners who really have a strong sense of purpose. And creating products to further that profession is really what I'm passionate about.
What do you find interesting about developing products or coming to business from that aspect? Do you find that you like the product angle because it's always, these are my words, always a little different? You're trying to solve solutions. Is that what kind of has intrigued you about it?
Yeah, there's kind of two things that intersect, and they're actually quite opposite, that I love about building products and businesses. And one is, to be able to improve somebody's day-to-day, to just give somebody something that's going to make them better at what they do. And when you believe in what they do, it feels great to give them something that really makes a difference in their life. One of my first jobs at TD Ameritrade, where I am now, was to build a web-based version of iRebal, our balancing and trading technology. And there was a moment in time where I realized really the impact that made when an advisor wrote me a note, an email, and he said, I now spend more time with my family. And I just,
oh, that's awesome,
was bursting with emotion about, what I had done. So that's one side of product that I love. The other side is a little less emotional. And it's really the part about being able to take something and make money from it, right? The first time, and the second product that I created at TD Ameritrade was the Model Market Center. And that's a revenue generating product for TD Ameritrade. And I remember the very first time I saw the report come in, and I think it was $3 that we created. And it really I felt it really like I rubbed two sticks together and made fire, right? Like you just took something and built something that didn't exist before, and you can create revenue and income from that. And that's a fantastic feeling as well.
What motivated you to develop the model center? What was it that you were hearing? And do you have a philosophy for bringing product to market?
Yeah, great question. I was hearing a lot of things out in the industry, a lot of problems that advisors were having. And I remember my days in iRebal going to RIA offices and helping them figure out how to stand up iRebal. I learned something really important, and that was a lot of advisors are creating their own investment strategies from scratch, and they're spending a lot of time doing it. And that's not where their value lies. I believe that a financial advisor's value lies in spending time with their clients. So I started questioning this. Why are so many advisors spending so much time creating their own investment strategies when that's not really where their value lies? So then I started listening, and I was asking the questions, why aren't you outsourcing investment management to a third party? And the answers were, oh, it's too expensive. Oh, I have to give up complete control. I have to just hand over discretion to a sub-advisor, and I don't have control over those accounts anymore. And so between, identifying the problem and the pain points, I was able to kind of create an idea which would solve those pain points and get the advisor back some more time to spend with their clients. And about the philosophy of creating products, right? It's a mix of things, and it's got to be a really careful balance. And I think Henry Ford said it the best. If you just asked clients what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse, right? So it's got to be this mix, this kind of magic potion of listening to your customers and your target customers and listening to their problems, but being able to be innovative enough and creative enough that you come up with and then iterate on a solution that solves those problems.
Help introduce something they haven't even thought of.
Yes, exactly.
How do you stay in touch with the financial advisor community today and make sure you're, getting the feedback that you need to get from that community?
Yeah. Financial advisors love to give feedback, by the way. Probably the least shy group.
So it's not a problem.
It's not very hard. You just have to have a thick skin. I rely a lot on my Twitter presence. So that's another thing that I kind of fell into was being pretty active on social media. Twitter specifically has introduced me to a lot of influential advisors in the space. And that's kind of the platform that I'm not only speaking, but doing a lot of listening. And I think that's really crucial, especially in today's environment. Just listening to what people are saying. You don't always have to be the one asking the question. You don't always have to be the one giving the answer. But just being out there listening and making those connections has been really crucial to my success as an innovator in the space.
What do you think one of the bigger obstacles that financial advisors have in adopting new technologies, whether it's social media or new applications?
I think it's time. I really do. I think the first thing that you need to show a financial advisor before they adopt a technology is, what is the tangible benefit that they're going to get out of the technology, because they are going to have to spend a lot of time learning it, implementing it, and then they're going to, come to rely on it. Any financial advisor doesn't want to have 6 different systems to log into to manage their client portfolios or their client relationships, right? Because it's all a matter of time and efficiency and access and scale. So I think a new technology, although there is a cohort of advisors who will experiment, and I'm a big fan of experimentation, right? You don't need to pick something up and place it across your entire business. You can pick something up and test it out with 5 clients. I love that idea of experimentation, and I do believe advisors with the best technology stack start by experimenting before they have a full commitment. But I really do think it comes down to time more so than anything, and really understanding what tangible benefit they're going to get from adopting a new software.
What issues do you see technology helping financial advisors with over the next 3 to 5 years?
I really feel like technology now is going to help in the next 3 to 5 years. It's going to help an advisor communicate with their clients better. Whether that means new mediums like the voice medium that I'm a big fan of. I'm a big fan of advisors having podcasts. That's one of the platforms I stand on. Or whether it's content creation, right? So advisors aren't sure if they should be writing blogs and what their blogs should be about. I think technology is going to play a big role there with understanding what an individual client wants to read, and then being able to sort of steer the advisor in the right direction in terms of either just providing content or aiding in the content creation. So I think client communication is probably the biggest opportunity area that I'm seeing at the moment.
Is TD helping to facilitate any of that for financial advisors, or what's next on the plate for TD?
Yeah, so TD Ameritrade is helping, first of all, by experimenting ourselves in the voice arena. So TD Ameritrade has recently launched both a podcast as well as an Alexa flash briefing. So we're out there figuring out the voice space in financial services. So, and we're being very purposeful about doing that so that we can bring that knowledge and that help to advisors, right? So right now we're working on creating educational material and other tools for advisors to kind of figure out the space on their own, stay in touch with their clients, and we'll be helping with creating those mediums or those channels, and then, filling them up with content. So yes, TD Ameritrade is definitely working on helping advisors communicate with their clients.
Have you seen any cutting edge ways that advisors have adopted technology in their practice?
Yeah, so almost staying with the theme of inside of client communication, I've been seeing a lot of artificially intelligent tools coming out to sort of help advisors figure out what kind of content to send to what kind of clients. So I'll cite, one interesting development in the recent past. A company called Kraken has partnered with Hightower Hightower is a large advisor, to create a solution where clients are sort of categorized based on their personal needs and interests. And then Kraken is able to help create and facilitate content that is specific to those categories of folks.
All right, let's go back and revisit artificial intelligence, because I think it's a fairly broad category or term in the way I think about it, and perhaps you can tell me how you think about it, and perhaps start with what artificial intelligence is and some of the different applications.
I'd be happy to, and I get asked this question a lot, and so I try to always have this really simple way to think about artificial intelligence on hand. We're all familiar with algorithms, which are rules-based engines where a developer will sit down and give the engine some rules to follow. If yes, then go left. If no, then go right. And there's this kind of tree that sort of is built out of decision points where the developer is telling the computer exactly where to go when they find a certain situation. Artificial intelligence and machine learning is quite different than that. So an artificial intelligent machine is trained, and it's trained to make a decision as a human would. And this example that I give is, I'm going to walk outside today and I'm going to say it's going to rain. Okay. And I'm probably right. My accuracy on that prediction is probably pretty high. And it's pretty high based on my lifetime of experiences. I have walked out of my house thousands of times and it has either rained or been sunny. And so there's experiences that I've built into my memory that my brain calls upon to be able to tell me that it's now going to rain. If you ask me how I made that decision, I might be able to quantify it for you and say, well, Ed, the sky's kind of looking a little gray and there's a certain smell in the air and the air kind of feels a little bit moist. But really, it's the experiences that I've had that I pull from to make that decision. And artificial intelligence sort of works exactly the same way. That's the way it's built. It is fed experiences or data. So I can feed the machine 1,000 rainy days, and all I have to say to the machine is, these are rainy days. And I feed it 1,000 sunny days, and I say, these are sunny days. And now when I give it that 2001st day, I'll ask it, is this a sunny day or a rainy day? And it will know, and it will be a high degree of accuracy. It may not be able to quantify exactly the rules and patterns that it has used to figure out that it's going to be a rainy or a sunny day. And it just pulls from the data you fed it before and sort of has come up with its own predictions and its own patterns, the same way the human brain, or I shouldn't say same, but in a similar way that the human brain would. So that's what artificial intelligence is and how it sort of works.
Have you seen it applied in an investment context?
Yeah, definitely. I've seen it a couple of different ways in an investment. One, there's, interestingly enough, Motif, who just shut their doors, and I know Charles Schwab just acquired their IP. Motif was doing something really interesting. They were creating an artificially intelligence-based investment model that there wasn't being touched by human hands, and what it was trained to do was just go out into the world and read all of the news and the company financials and look historically at how different types of news and company financials have impacted performance of other companies in the past, right? So that's a pattern, and make a prediction on how companies will perform in the future based on current news and financials. So that was one of the most interesting and uses of artificially intelligent investment management that I've seen. I really don't know how that model or that strategy performed, so I'm definitely not not recommending it. But it really was this really creative and innovative way for us to really see how powerful artificial intelligence can be inside of investments. I sort of prefer solutions. There's another company called Likefolio that reads all of Twitter every day. And basically what they're looking for is mentions of companies and then the sentiment around those mentions. So are people talking positively or negatively about the company? Are people talking about buying the product or never buying the product, right? And so they come up with this very large database of sentiment. and they're able to, headed into earnings, sort of give a piece of data or a look at social sentiments and purchase intent. And that becomes, for a lot of investment managers and traders, a piece of the puzzle, right? Just a piece. It's another data point that will help inform a decision on which way to go.
Yeah, something like that seems a little more approachable or perhaps understandable. If it's just a piece, maybe you can help me here as a product person. We get a look at different ideas all the time for new ETFs or funds, and we've had some artificial intelligence strategies come across our desk at times, and sometimes I just quite don't know how to really look at it. Yes, that's all right. There's some neural network or machine learning. What questions should I ask? How do I evaluate Model A versus Model B or somebody else's model? It seems so complex at times.
I love that question, Ed, and it's a great one. And my advice is there's really some very specific questions you can ask to weed out, first of all, weed out what's really AI and what's not. And they are, number one, what data are you using to train your model? So I want to know, what data have you given it, and sort of what else have you told it about that data? Like, what is, what's going to weight it positively? What's going to weight it negatively? Like, tell me about the data you've used to train it. That's the first question. So that'll be really insightful for you in terms of just understanding how it works. The other question that I really like is, and this will tell you if they're being sort of truthful about the AI or not. This can open a whole nother conversation. Ask them, how do they remove bias from the algorithm? How do they remove bias from the artificial intelligence? So the answer is really that it's impossible at the moment to remove bias from any artificially intelligent model. And that is because the bias exists in the data. There's just systematic bias, which of course especially now, we can really go down a rabbit hole talking about systematic bias, but there is bias living in the data. And unless you control the data that you put into it, you cannot remove the bias. But if you control the data that you put into it, now you've put in your own bias, right? So the answer is that there's really no way at the moment to remove bias from artificial intelligence. So I love those two questions. How do you train your data model? What do you tell it? How do you classify things? And how do you remove biases from the model?
In light of recent events, how do you think AI helps society or can help society in the future? Helps or hurts?
Yeah, helps or hurts. That's a big debate. And to be clear, I don't think the answer is clear yet. It is a powerful technology and it's got a lot of potential. But we've seen a lot of missteps with artificial intelligence already. One example was Amazon. I don't know if you recall the news story about how Amazon was using an artificially intelligent machine to screen resumes. And so the way that it trained the data model was that it gave, all of its history on all employees, right? Here's all of my employees. Here's my employees' performance. And here's their resume. So now, machine, what resume belongs to a good employee, okay? So let's go out and find other resumes that could potentially be good employees. Now, I'm sure that you can see that there's already bias built into that system, right? So there's already this sort of human element to classifying who's a good employee and who's not. So what ended up happening was the AI was actually delivering an uncomfortably large portion of male resumes. It was not picking female resumes out of the pile. And it's debatable as to why, maybe because artificial intelligence really doesn't have a set of rules to follow. It's very hard to say, what was inherently wrong with that data. But you can imagine, that just innately it's been said that men will, use stronger language in their resume. It's said that men will, maybe exaggerate their skill sets a little bit more than a female would, right? Because females are innately a little bit more risk averse. So with these elements, mixed into this huge data set, created this bias. Now, Amazon, they resolved it by shutting it down. They don't use that AI anymore. They unplugged that machine. But, then the question remains, does that help or hurt society? I think it helps because, it's no longer black and it's no longer gray. You can ask, is there a bias in employment? It's the artificial intelligence just told you, yes, there is. There is a human bias embedded in that data. So now and it's no longer gray. But will the artificial intelligence perpetuate that bias? That's a whole nother question. And what do we do about it? I think that still remains to be seen.
Let's just talk about more kind of personal stuff. Do you have a favorite app that you like to use?
I'm addicted to TikTok right now.
All right.
I might.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that in the. Oh, really?
I might have to delete that from the podcast. Yeah.
Well, you had a post about over 35 people over 35 are obsessed with TikTok.
Yeah, I think it's a nice break from the sort of the news, the headlines. There's a lot to think about right now, and a lot that everyone is dealing with, and people are just trying to figure out what to say, how to help. And I think TikTok is a nice break from the get a couple of laughs, see all different kinds of people showing off their creativity. I love that. But if I was going to really tell you about an app or a platform that I'm spending some time on professionally, there's a new one that I found called Product Hunt. And it is a platform for ideators like me or innovators to kind of just go and get feedback. It's not about necessarily like investments, or finding clients or customers. It's about sharing ideas and getting feedback from like-minded people who are, also product people who may have experience in that area or just have ideas for iterating on or obstacles you might run into. And it's really a fun platform to just to spend some time on to get, the innovative juices flowing. I'm a big believer in innovation, that innovation begets innovation. The more experiments you try, the more ideas you talk about, the more you just put out into the world, the better your ideas will be. And the more ideas will come to you. I think that's being in this space and continuing to expose yourself to all different kinds of people and opinions is really where you're gonna find the winning idea.
Yeah, well said. I think that's one of the things I've learned at VanEck as well. Is sometimes you just got to move forward. You got to make that first step and then kind of figure it out as you go. And it doesn't have to be perfect all the time or at the first instance, but just move forward, just iterate, and different ideas pop out of that sometimes.
Yeah. The wrong decision is better than no decision 100% of the time.
What is one big trend you see playing out over the next year or several years?
I think that the biggest trend that I'm seeing, which will impact potentially all areas of our lives, whether it be financial services or otherwise, is the desire to express your opinion, the desire to be seen and heard, and for other people to allow you the space to do so. And so I know I was joking about the TikTok app before, but what I think is really amazing about that app and amazing about the time that we're in right now is that app is all about creators, right? Everyone is creating their own channel, having their voice be heard. And I, for one, would rather watch these independent creators, which are just, people doing their thing. I'd rather watch that than an HBO special that, had lots of production funding behind it. And I think it's really interesting when you think about, the younger generation, specifically Gen Z, they love to watch creators. They love to watch their peers create. And I think what's happening is that we're becoming sort of a society of expressive individuals. And I really think that's going to change business culture. I think it's going to change our culture overall. We've come a really long way from, the idea of being seen and not heard. We've come a long way from the idea of fitting in. And now we really value individuality and expression. And I think that's really the biggest trend that I'm seeing that I think will continue far into the future.
That's fascinating. And that's great, because we've kind of been talking about that as well as a firm, and how media and entertainment has kind of changed. And you just vocalize that, where you'd rather watch creators than some mass or highly produced TV series, for instance, or something like that. So that's fascinating that you and others out there now have that desire or prefer to interact with content creators in that way. All right, so now this is our speed round. This is called Trend or Fad. I'll throw out a few concepts, and you can just mention whether you think. This is the surprise round.
Oh, man. I'm always afraid of what's going to come out of my mouth as the first thought.
But you know what they say is the first thought's usually the best one, right? Bitcoin, trend or fad?
Double answer. Bitcoin, fad. Blockchain and cryptocurrency, trend.
Work from home for the long term, trend or fad?
Trend. I think it's a trend, and I think you're going to start to see people actually move out of cities after this is all over.
About deglobalization, trend or fad?
Trend.
And finally, I probably know the answer to this one, but podcasts, trend or fad?
Definitely a trend.
Fantastic. Dani, thank you so much for joining me today and being such a great sport. How do people find you?
Easiest way to find me is on Twitter at Dani Fava _TDA.
Again, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. We'll catch up soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ed.